What up? What up? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this podcast, we talk about crowdfunding. We talk about how to get your projects funded. How do you raise capital when it comes to your startup, your idea? How do you inject all of those resources into your pocket so you can actually go out there, you can create new products and new services, you can get them out there to the world as well as spread that mission which you have. Now, so many of the students and entrepreneurs that I've worked with in the past, the creators, creative types, the inventors, the people who are really bringing new stuff into the world, you'd be really surprised. But I'd say the majority of them are trying to solve some kind of a problem that they believe in, some kind of a problem that they've seen exist in their own life, maybe some kind of a problem they've had to wrestle with from time to time, or that they see as impacting the world in a negative way. And you know what they do, man? They always, almost all of them, will want to build a company to solve that problem. Now, if you're already kind of thinking that way with what you're doing, that's a really good signal, because that means that you are kind of thinking the same way that a lot of other successful individuals are thinking. So you're really in the right mindset if you are thinking in that direction. But number two, the question is like, how? How do I do it? How do I connect with those people? How do I, even get someone to look at what I'm trying to do? And not only that, but invest in it. Not only that, but support it, to back it if you're doing a Kickstarter campaign. That's what I want to talk about in today's episode, because we brought on an individual who was able to attract more than $270,000 to raise for a new campaign, a new way to actually help when it comes to farmers increasing their crop yield. Now, I know that sounds kind of offbeat or like a random topic, but I really like you to view this project through the lens of, how do I get people excited about the problem I'm trying to solve? How do I get people excited about what I'm trying to do when it comes to making an impact on the world? And this person, they're freaking passionate about this. They're passionate about helping farmers, right? They're trying to solve that problem of increasing crop yield. That's what they're passionate about. But what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What kind of impact do you want to make? Because if you listen to some of the things that this individual did to raise more than, to raise six figures with this campaign, you're going to be able to apply that to exactly what it is that you are trying to do. And that's really the name of the game here, is how do you take what they're doing? How do you take the keys to success and you use that to fill some of your locks so you can open more doors in your life, right? So this is going to be a campaign about regulation crowdfunding. It's going to be about Wefunder. We're going to talk about equity crowdfunding on this episode. And again, this is a little bit different than Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I have some other great episodes about Kickstarter and Indiegogo. This is something you can also do in addition to that. This is also something you can do when it comes to raising capital for your business and opening that up to the world. And it's a new thing. This wasn't always the case. It's really taken a tremendous amount of momentum in the past year or two. And that's why I'm deciding to cover it on this podcast, is that I think it's so freaking important to introduce you guys to the cutting edge of what is working now with crowdfunding, the cutting edge of those new innovative techniques in order to get funding, in order to get backers, in order to get investors for your projects. I want you to feel like your fingers are on the pulse when it comes to this industry. And obviously I do that as well when it comes to bringing these guests on, which is kind of a nice little byproduct of being a host of the show. So that being said, you're about to discover how this individual was able to raise six figures with their Wefunder campaign. If you want to learn more about RegCF or Wefunder, you can go to the free link I'm about to mention, and you can enter your name and email and start getting some emails from me on this. This is a free course. You can go to this link at crowdcrux.com/equity course. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/equity course, crowdcrux.com/equity course. Go there, enter your name and email. You'll start getting some emails from me, or you can grab a copy of my book, Equity Crowdfunding Explained, at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That is crowdcrux.com/equity audio, crowdcrux.com/equity audio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get into today's podcast episode. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with a Wefunder campaign that has hit the six-figure mark, over 220 that's been raised, as to help farmers increase crop yield, save water, and maximize profits. And we are lucky enough, we are incredible enough to have a member of the team here today. We got Patrick. Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Definitely, man. So I know you have a really illustrious background. I know you've done a lot of cool stuff in your career. Could you kind of just quickly share with the audience who you are and some of your accomplishments? Then we can kind of get into this new project you're working on.
Sure. I'm Patrick Henry, as you mentioned. I'm the CEO of GroGuru. GroGuru is really all about strategic water management for commercial farmers. We help farmers make more money by increasing crop yield and more efficiently using water. So it's really all about food security, water conservation, and helping farmers make more money and sustain it. A little bit about my background. I'm a serial entrepreneur, multiple time CEO. This is my fourth technology startup company. I've had multiple exits, including an IPO that led to $1 billion valuation on NASDAQ. And I got involved with GroGuru in 2017, initially as an angel investor, and then joined full time with my two kind of key co-founders, Jeff Campbell, who's a PhD physicist, and Farouk Anjem, who's a PhD electrical engineer, when we got closer to commercializing the product. So I joined full time in the middle of 2018 and kind of weathering the COVID storm and building the company. And I'm super excited about what we're doing.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I mean, I think for most entrepreneurs, once they've had their first blockbuster or done a $1 billion IPO, like you said, they kind of call it quits, go to the Bahamas, sip some margaritas. What really made you want to, try this again and really get back into the trenches there with this?
Well, it's a couple things. I mean, first, I love what we're doing. It's very important for farmers. It's very important for the planet. It's important for our children and grandchildren. If you look at kind of the statistics, 70% of the world's fresh water supply is used for agriculture irrigation. And we have to increase the amount of food by 70% by 2050 just to keep pace with population growth. Clearly, that math doesn't work. And anything that we can do to improve water efficiency, water conservation, improve the amount of food we grow, which we do both of those things. We actually increase crop yield as well as save water at the same time and other scarce resources, and allow farmers to be better stewards of the planet. This is all about sustainability. These are amazingly important things. And that's kind of the really big picture. And then the other reason why I joined is I just love this team. I love the idea. I love what we're doing. I think the timing is right. And so far, so good. I mean, even with the COVID storm, so to speak, we continue to get tremendous traction, tremendous receptivity around the solution from our farmer customers. And I think we've now kind of weathered the worst part of the COVID storm. And I think we're really poised for some pretty explosive growth ahead of us.
So for you, it sounds like you're almost using startups and technology as a way to impact the world, as a way to kind of have this change for the positive happen, right? And I don't know if we always view, business in that way, but it sounds like that's really, if you guys are successful in really popularizing the technology that you're talking about here, it would have a really big impact on the world, it sounds like.
No question about it. I mean, if you look at it, the typical results for farmers with our solution is they get about a 10 to 20% increase in crop yield, and at the same time, a 10 to 20% savings on input cost, which is water, fertilizer, energy, all things that are obviously scarce resources. So, when you can offer farmers, even in a commodity crop like corn and soybeans, a 30% plus efficiency improvement in water and other resources, it's incredibly important for what we're doing. So yeah, I mean, obviously I want to be successful. I want to make my team successful. I want to make our investors and our customers successful. And that means delivering a tremendous return on investment. But at the same time, we are doing something really good and really important for the planet while we're doing well for all of those constituencies.
What are one or two of the lessons that you learned from not only having a couple successful companies, but also growing them to a much bigger scale? What are one or two of the lessons you learned that you're probably going to also apply, I imagine, to this venture?
Yeah, I think that people underestimate the importance of not giving up. As simple as that sounds, every entrepreneur that I know, and I know a lot of them, both companies I've invested in, companies I've run, people I've met through different programs, accelerator programs, venture capital programs, all these things throughout my career. I've been running tech companies for 20 years. And there isn't a single exception that I know of, personally. I mean, I've heard stories, but there isn't a single exception that I know of where the entrepreneur, the founder CEO doesn't have a situation where their back is completely up against the wall. And most people, because it's super hard. I mean, it's hard to build something out of nothing. And that's what you're doing as an entrepreneurial startup, as a tech startup, is you're building something out of nothing, and you do the best that you can, but you typically run into a very difficult situation that sometimes seems insurmountable. And you have to
Mm.
pivot or change or adapt or whatever you want to call it. And it's the entrepreneurs that are successful in doing that that build great companies and build great businesses. So I think that's number one.
Do you feel like there was a point in your career that you could share where you really had to persist, or you felt like your back was up against the wall, and that kind of led to a payoff in the future? Is there any point in your career that you're thinking of where you really learned that lesson?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple. I can give two examples from the company that I took public. I mean, one was we took the company public in late 2007 when we were in the midst of, or the beginning of the financial crisis. And then we had to weather the storm through 2009, the depths of the downturn. But I'll give you kind of the Reader's Digest version of taking the company public. We had a busted IPO. We were out on the IPO roadshow for 2 weeks. We couldn't get sufficient traction with our IPO. The bankers told us they would not be able to take the company public. And we did some real soul searching. We did a lot of investigation around what was the issue with investors around our company. We were marketing our company in the $9 to $11 price range, and we were trying to raise $100 million. We determined that there was enough interest in our deal to raise about $60 million, more in the $6 to $8 price range. And the following day, we got on the phones and we're smiling and dialing for dollars, and we got the company public. And if we would not have done that, we probably wouldn't have weathered through the financial crisis downturn. So and eventually built $1 billion company. So it's, sometimes you just have to like gut it out and try to find creative ways to solve problems that a lot of people would just give up. They'd go home, lick their wounds, and try to do it again in a year or two, which obviously, we were the last tech company that went public for 2 years. So, it wasn't like we were going to go back
Yeah.
out and raise money in 60 days or 6 months or a year. It wasn't going to be possible.
And is that something you've kind of always had, that gene or that trait of persistence and pushing through and looking for opportunity even under tremendous pressure? Or is that something you kind of cultivated throughout your career?
I think of this story when I was a kid. When I was in what's called bantam baseball. And I must have been, I don't know, 8 years old. And I wanted to play baseball, and I was terrible. And I wanted to quit in the middle of the season because I was so terrible. And my dad told me, "You can't quit. You're the one that wanted to do this. You don't have to play again next year, but you have to finish the season." So I gutted it out, learned a couple things. I was able to be productive in a couple ways. I didn't play baseball ever again. I was an athlete in high school and in college, but not in baseball. And I think that
Yeah, yeah.
lesson of you can't quit. It's like you got to finish what you start.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's so incredibly important, right? And obviously that's led to a lot of success and also some of the stuff you're going to be applying with this particular venture. So that's incredible, man. Thank you for
Sure.
sharing that.
Yeah, and these are the kind of the earmarks of a successful business based on my experience as an angel investor and a serial entrepreneur that's built, multiple $100 million, $1 billion businesses. Is there's things you have to look for, big market, potentially growing very fast, you know, a big value proposition. You're doing something important for the customers that they actually care about, a sustainable competitive advantage, and then a team that has the product, domain, technical, business expertise to pull it off, kind of the mission impossible team. And if you're missing any of those things, and you don't have kind of good timing relative to when the market has the potential to accelerate, it's nearly impossible to build a company. It's already nearly impossible. If you look at the statistics, I mean, like 90% of the venture-backed startups go out of business. So
Mm.
it's finding and identifying those things, and GroGuru has all of those things. Doesn't mean it's easy. It's still very difficult, but we have the right things to make this into a very successful business. I mean, it has tremendous potential, massive market, great customers. They love the product. We have a sustainable competitive advantage. We're addressing a very important issue for our farmers, and we've got the A team. I mean, we've got just an incredible team.
So, I mean, as an angel investor, you get to participate in the emotional upside and the ups and downs of the startup without actually running it, right?
Correct.
So, what really prompted that decision for you to kind of take the reins here? I think it says a ton about the actual company and your belief in it. What kind of prompted that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Jeff and Farouk, and I really liked what they were doing. And when I initially invested, we were still in the what I call the rocket science phase of the project, where we had to prove that the technology, the underlying technology, worked. And when I joined in, the middle of 2018, we had completed field trials. We had some validation around the fundamental technology working, which we call the wireless underground system, which is now a patented technology. It enables the permanent installation of soil sensors, even in annual field crops like corn and soybeans, which is 85% of the irrigated acreage in the U.S. market, and the vast acreage worldwide and in the U.S. So once they had that kind of rocket science part, because I wasn't going to solve that problem, and I saw the massive market opportunity, how important, this is like 30x more scalable than the competitive alternatives from a hardware standpoint, about 10x more scalable from a software standpoint, the tremendous value proposition for customers, and that I could add a complementary piece to the team with kind of my business and more of the business domain expertise. And those guys, along with some other people we've added to the team, like David Sloan, who's a PhD agronomist, who's an expert in irrigation agronomy, has been working in that field for over 25 years. He's probably one of maybe one or two handfuls of people that have that level of expertise. So kind of building that team, and I'm definitely somebody that likes riding the horse more than just betting on horses. That's been the vast majority of my career. It doesn't mean I don't make some investments, but this is what I enjoy doing, and we're doing something super important.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I was looking also through what people say. So we'll talk about like your Reg CF in just a
Yeah.
second. But this venture, I was looking through what people say, and people are saying that they love this business. They like the concept, how the technology helps farmers. Someone said they're horticulturists and support tech, the leap that you're doing here. Other people are saying they're investing because they think the world needs more food. So you have a lot of people that are kind of singing your praises here with what people say in that section. What really prompted you going to this Reg CF, this Wefunder route, as opposed to the ways you've raised capital in the past?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I raised venture capital, other than, I mean, we do have some venture capitalists that have invested in GroGuru, but they're kind of ag tech accelerator programs where maybe they've put in $100,000 or $200,000, those kind of ranges. So we haven't gotten like big seven-figure checks like I have in previous companies that I've run. And I think it's a couple things. The nature of venture capital has changed. It's definitely moved much more downstream where they're writing bigger checks for later stage deals. So it's a lot harder to find people that truly invest in seed stage and Series A companies. And they're expecting, if they're investing in seed, they really expect Series A metrics. If they're investing in Series A, they really
Mm,
expect Series B metrics. So everything is kind of moved downstream. So that means the typical startup today, unless you're in Silicon Valley and you're like, the golden child from Stanford or something like that, I think the vast majority of us, even guys that I know that are still in Silicon Valley, and I worked 10 years of my career up there, that are serial entrepreneurs and have big successes, they're even grinding it out. So it's really, really tough. And so that's part of the market dynamic part of it. So most of us that are kind of in that seed Series A stage, we've raised a lot more angel money from accredited investors than typically what we would have done in the past. In the past, we would have gone to Sand Hill Road, got $1 million check as a seed investor from one of the VCs. They'd roll that into the Series A. You do a $10 million Series A, and you're kind of off to the races. So that model, I just haven't seen it happen in the last probably 10 years. And like I said, the last time I raised venture capital was before I took my last company public. So it was probably back in, I don't know, 2004, 2003, 2004 maybe.
mhm,
But it's
mhm.
been a long time, and the nature of that market has changed. And what equity crowdfunding has done, it has kind of democratized the ability for the regular investor off the street that's not accredited to be an angel investor, to invest in private companies. And when it got started, when we did our first Wefunder back in 2020, the limit was $1,070,000. We raised $2 million, but we had to do the second million in a Reg D offering from accredited investors, because the most we could raise from non-accredited investors was $1,070,000. So,
Mm.
but now that cap has been raised to $5 million for a Reg CFs. That's real money. I mean, that's real money for an early stage startup, and it's exciting from the standpoint of being able to get non-accredited investors involved in a deal and generate that enthusiasm and excitement around the crowd, that maybe they're customers, maybe they're academics, maybe they're people that really believe, like some of the comments that you read, that wouldn't ordinarily be able to invest 25, 50, $100,000 in a deal like this, but they can afford $250 or $1,000 or $5,000. So I think our typical investment in the first Wefunder was probably somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500, which that threshold would have never been possible had we been raising from accredited angel investors. I mean, the minimum is typically 25K and usually 50K.
Yeah, and I mean, it was so oversubscribed, like you said, you had to open up a Reg D, right, to be
Yeah,
able to even encompass the demand that seemed like it was there.
correct.
So when you did that first project, what did you think of like Reg CF? Did you really believe this? Like, what was your initial thought when you heard that people online can invest in companies? Like, was that something that you immediately just jumped on, or what was your relationship like with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was massively skeptical. So I met a gentleman who works at WeFunder. He's in their business development group. He may run their business development group, a guy named Justin Renfro, awesome guy. And I met him at the San Diego Angel Conference, and we started talking about it because obviously COVID was, starting to hit. Venture capitalists were really tightening down. So even it was worse than kind of the normal VC situation where it was difficult to raise a VC round, but now they were like all in triage mode. Focused on not making any new investments. How much money were they going to have to put into their existing portfolio? Which ones were they going to let go? Which companies were they going to shut down? Which companies were trying to sell, all those kinds of things. So it was kind of like in 2007 when we took Entropic public. It's like you could
Hmm.
sense that the carnage was coming. And I was talking to Justin. I had like half a dozen objections about why I didn't think equity crowdfunding would work for a company like GroGuru. And I would always thought about equity crowdfunding more like you're going after your customers. You're trying to build a tribe like you would on a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo project. And he felt like that we had such a great story that would resonate with retail investors, and our ability to tell that story in a way that people understood it was there. So in addition, like I said, the other 5 issues that I had, and I was like, hey, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do. And it ended up being incredibly successful. Like you said, we raised $2 million in like 35 days.
What did that feel like? Because I mean, before you were so skeptical, and then that happens, and it's like super validated. I'm sure you have all these people that are now part of your project, right?
Yeah.
What did that feel like to really hit that milestone?
It was a huge shot in the arm. It was incredible for our customers. It was incredible for our employees, for our management team, for our existing investors. I mean, everybody was super excited and jazzed about it. We didn't realize that this COVID storm would last as long as it has. So, we had to go back to market in 2021. We raised a smaller round on Start Engine, another equity crowdfunding platform, but they're not really focused on Reg CF. A lot of their effort has really gone into raising money for their own company and also doing Reg A plus deals, which are much larger deals. So we kind of got lost in the crowd, the sea of things. Whereas with the WeFunder, they only do Reg CF. So we were a very prominent deal for their platform. And that's really why we went back to WeFunder to kind of do the follow on or the extension of the round that we started on Start Engine, because we thought we were going to raise like 4 million and we raised less than a million. And I think there was a lot
Mhm.
of reasons for that. And we're excited to be back on WeFunder, and we think that we can really kind of knock the ball out of the park, and maybe even get to the point where we never don't even have to raise venture capital, which would be awesome for all of our existing investors, because there's much less dilution, all the things associated with there's obviously big positives with venture capital if you really kind of want to grow a massive company. But we
Mhm.
would be in a much stronger position, get to profitability, and at a minimum be able to negotiate way better terms with venture capital firms, and maybe not even need to go that route in terms of raising capital from that type of a source.
So, in your experience here, I mean, as a CEO, you obviously have the obligation to raise money and also kind of lead the tribe, right? So,
Yeah.
you're kind of the master of the ship, and you also are making sure that you have enough resources to keep the lights on and such. What has been the most rewarding part of the process, and what would you say has been the most difficult in doing these different raises?
I'm a business builder, and as a CEO of a company, you're the head salesperson, the head cheerleader, the head of operations, the head of strategy, and the head of raising capital, finance, managing company financially, which includes raising outside capital, because these companies they're different than like mom and pop businesses where you're fueling your growth out of your revenue. You're typically raising outside
Mhm.
capital for a much bigger return over a little bit longer period of time. The hardest thing about running startups for me, and it always has been, is raising money, because it's a distraction from focusing on building the business, which I think really good at, and I've done it a lot. So I have a pretty strong track record both inside of companies. Before I started running companies, I built some massive businesses, and I think I'm really good at that, even in a situation where there's tremendous adversity, which seems like if you run a business long enough, there always will be times of tremendous
Yeah,
adversity.
yeah. Always going to
So,
hit that.
you got to weather through those things. But yeah, it's been one of those things where it's important to keep gas in the gas tank. And it's, if you don't do that as a CEO, then, and I've obviously been pretty successful at that. I've raised over $200 million in equity capital for my companies. Now, over half of that was from the public markets. And it seems like the bigger the checks are that you're raising, the easier it is. So it's just one of those things where, you
Well,
know,
they say like all sales are the same, it's
yeah,
just no matter what it is, if it's a big number, if it's a small number, you still gotta, work on it. You gotta make sure that you close the deal, right? So it's like a big sale is the same as a small deal.
yeah. So raising early stage capital is challenging, but we've been successful at it. We've, out of necessity, it's forced us to be way more scrappy and way more frugal than if we went out and raised a 10 or a $20
Mhm.
million venture round, which actually ends up being a good thing. It's forced us to be way more creative, but it has
Yeah,
been a
for sure.
challenge, and we're excited that we have access to this new form of raising capital with equity crowdfunding with Reg CF. It's been a success for us in the past. We're excited about what we're doing with it right now. And, the next 2 months are really going to be about me getting the word out, using my team to get the word out, using our existing tribe to get the word out, including our
Mhm.
existing investors, getting enough gas in the gas tank that we can make this thing a big success for all of
Yeah.
our investors and customers.
So I just have one more question on Reg CF, then we can kind of turn to Grow Guru and also where can people can learn more about that and check that out. My final question for
Sure.
you is, for someone in the audience that's hearing this, you've done a start engine campaign, you raised like, whatever it was, 900K or a bunch of money. You did the Wefunder and you were successful, overfunded. Now you're doing another one. It seems like you've really come down to this formula, almost this format. Do you have any advice on strategically what people need to do going into one of these projects, either on the marketing side or on the promotion side or anything along those lines, advice that you would have for someone trying to do one of these offerings?
Yeah, you need to have a story that is simple enough and resonates with retail investors, or you need to build a tribe that knows about it and they're automatically going to come and support you on the platform, because so much of it, especially in the beginning of a campaign, is generating that initial momentum. So even in this campaign out of the gate, we had, I don't know, 220 250K of investment, which is from our existing larger investors, because they continue to remain excited and positive about it. Now we're going to go out to our existing retail investors, our smaller investors, and generate momentum with that group. So, doing everything that you can to generate that early momentum, which is about building a tribe, having a tribe, building a tribe, and having a message that will resonate and be easily understood by retail investors.
Well said. Well said. Making sure you're honing your message and making sure it's easy to understand and obviously easy then to
Yeah,
share, right?
exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to your current project, which is now live, first of all, where can people go to learn a little bit more about that? But second of all, what is really the next big push here you feel like for the company and where you're going, this upcoming year with that?
You can go to www.wefunder.com GroGuru. That's GROGURU. And we went into the public launch phase, I think last Thursday. And we have an early bird discount in place of 15% bonus shares for the first $1 million that come in. We're about 25% into that. We're now just starting to go out to our smaller retail investors that did invest either in the Start Engine round or the previous Wefunder round. So I think that'll get eaten up pretty quickly. But yeah, there's an opportunity for everybody to kind of come in and get that early bird discount right now. I think that's a big incentive. I mean, a 15% discount is pretty significant. And this is really just an extension off of the same terms that we offered in the round that we did on Start Engine. So it's people are getting a potential deal there. I think for us, and there are a lot of people that talk about COVID that probably don't know what they're talking about. I have a few people that I know and rely and trust that, we're probably past the worst of it. There might be another kind of smaller surge, in the summer, maybe later this year, but I think we're through a lot of the worst of it. I mean, sadly, a lot of the global things that are going on in Europe are tough with the overall market. But we got to focus on what we can control and what we can do. And we've got an incredible value proposition for farmers. It's now, we've established what venture capitalists call product market fit. So we know that the stuff works. We know that it delivers incredible value for farmers, not because we say it, but because farmers are saying it. So we have great testimonials and case studies. So a lot of our focus now is to kind of continue to build out our market channels, build our base of business within the existing customers. We have over 1,000 subscribers to our service, which is 100,000 acres under management. Our existing customers represent 1 million deployable acres, and our existing dealer network represents over 5 million deployable acres. So we're going to continue to grow that network, but we can grow within the footprint that we've already established, which is really exciting.
And most of these currently are in the United States. Is that correct?
We're only focused in the US today. That's another thing with the startup. There's lots of shiny objects out there, and you can get incredibly distracted with a lot of different things, and staying focused in knowing, you can't do the Indy 500 on 150 miles worth of gasoline. So you gotta basically stay focused on the things where you can make the biggest impact and establish those beachheads early in a company that then you can leverage that into kind of being a bigger success over time.
Yeah, and just from a personal standpoint, I mean, obviously we have a lot of international viewers as well and an audience, but I think regardless of your country, it's important to invest in agriculture and also in the agriculture of your production of your own country, right? So United States.
Yeah, I mean, this is a global business and a global business opportunity. I mean, there's 313 million acres of crops, farmland in the United States. 52 million of that is irrigated. Of that, 44 million is irrigated field crops, corn, soybeans, and rotation crops around that, which is where GroGuru has a distinct advantage over the competition. And even in the other 15%, we've got some pretty significant advantages there. But there's over 3 billion acres of farmland globally. So this is, the global agriculture business is $2.4 trillion annually.
Huge.
So it's a massive market. And the application of technologies, what we call agri-tech or ag tech, is just at the very early stages. And we've got one of the more important technologies that are really going to help farmers make more money and be successful.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'll be sure to link that up in the show notes so people can go and check that out. My final question for you, and we can kind of end the show on this note, is if you can just speak directly to the listeners and you can leave them with a final tip, a word of encouragement, maybe a little bit of motivation, anything along those lines for that entrepreneur in the audience who maybe, or that person who's excited about, startups, who's maybe thinking about doing their own project or really trying to take their business to the next level or their career. What is something you could share with them that might resonate with them that you've discovered in your career? And we can kind of end on that note.
Yeah, I mean, ideas always seem like they're tough, but ideas are not nearly as important as execution. So, and in order to execute, I mean, obviously you have to have a good idea, but it's kind of like the Kleiner Perkins guys used to say, they'd rather have an A team with a B idea than a B team with an A idea, because the A team is going to figure it out. They'll pivot. They'll do something to make it into an A idea. So having the right team, have the right partners, that you build the right business, technical, market domain expertise, and really understand the market by talking to customers, not just by thinking in a room by yourself. are the most important things. And if you do that and you have the makings of a successful business and you have that no quit attitude and you build mentors and people that have experience in raising capital and doing those kinds of things, your chances of building a successful company are massively improved. And most of the failures I see result in some lacking in one of those areas. So that'd be my best tip for aspiring entrepreneurs and kind of younger and kind of, current people that are just getting into entrepreneurship, is those are the things I think that have been important in my career.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. I'll be sure to link it up in the show notes, and good luck with your remaining days when it comes to your Wefunder campaign.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Man, you are discovering the keys to success on this podcast. Every single day, we are working to excavate the dig. We're working to unearth crowdfunding gold so you can use this in order to achieve more success in your life, in order to get the results that you're looking for when it comes to your business, your startup, your project, your invention, your product, right? If you're doing a creative endeavor, in order to get the actual resources to be able to plow forward with that. We try to cover all of that on this podcast. And for me, when I've been doing this show, and obviously been doing it for a while now, kind of the commonalities that I tend to see are that people not only are really, a lot of people are also very hardworking, but what holds them back are not those two qualities. You might be intelligent, you might be hardworking, but that maybe isn't what's holding you back. What's holding you back could be a number of things. Number one could be the fact that you just don't know how to actually do a new process. You can be really a smart person, but you might just don't know about a process. It could take you forever to learn that thing, right? Forever to learn all the insides out of a process. And sometimes you don't have to know the entire thing, right? You could just hire experts. If you're gonna, file a patent, you could figure it all out yourself, or you could hire a lawyer, right? If you're gonna set up a business, you can figure it all out yourself, or you could hire a lawyer, an attorney. If you're gonna do accounting, right, you can figure all that out yourself, or you can hire a CPA. There's so many different people in your life, right, that you kind of lean on for their expertise, whether it's doctors, accountants, lawyers. All these people in our life are designed to help us accomplish different things. Even in, say, for example, your home, right? You might hire a general contractor. You might hire someone to help you when it comes to, fixing your air conditioner, right? These people are there and designed to help you get some kind of a result. And when I first entered the industry, what I realized is that was missing. That was missing in this industry. And those people that were providing those services really just wasn't really that great. And a lot of negative stuff out there. So I really tried to enter this industry to change that. And I do that not only through my coaching programs, but also with allowing people to book one-on-one coaching calls with me. And my team is like, Sal, this is crazy. Why are you still doing these one-on-one calls? You don't have to do this. Why is it that you're always pushing this? I think it's important. I think it's important to have this as a service. I think it's really important that people can book one-on-one. And I think that's really important as well for those out there that want to just understand a process better. And I'll be honest with you, like some of the reasons why people book calls, it could be to, I want to launch this new Wefunder campaign. I want to raise capital for my business. I want to know what is the best crowdfunding site for me. I want to know this. I want to know that. There are certain things that people want to know on these calls, but more often than not, it's really someone wanting to be like, Sal, I need you to guide me. Like, I know this is crazy. I actually booked one of these calls. I don't have any questions for you. I just want to know, I want to get your perspective on where I am. Hold my hand, take me there, lead me, right? And in some cases, people even have the budget to have me directly help when it comes to their project. If you're one of those people that are like, I do have a lot of questions and I do want to get to that on these calls, but in addition, I just want a strong sense of leadership with this project. I just want someone who knows their stuff and to directly tell me what I got to do next, and to hold my hand throughout that process. Or if I have the budget, to actually just bring them on my team, which can solve a lot of problems as well. If that sounds like that's something that's interesting to you and you want to solve that problem, really, it only takes a call, man. You got to go to this link I'm about to mention. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me and get that squared away ASAP. Go to the link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me there, intensive, and you also get homework and action items and a lot of other stuff when it comes to that. It's really a no-brainer and one of the best investments that you can make leading up to an upcoming launch, or if you just want a little bit more clarity, a little bit more inspiration when it comes to this project and when it comes to this new chapter in your life. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Please leave a rating and review on this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. Come subscribe. I'm also on Instagram now. You can look me up at Salvador Briggman. I'm thinking about starting a TikTok, but I'm not there yet. I haven't made it to that platform. But appreciate you so much again, and hope you have a great week.